go ahead and bring up Mary. Go ahead.
Well, I had the privilege to be a stay-at-home mom for 19 years because Phil really was, he still is the W-2 guy and always has been, very steady income. And I was a pretty good saver. And so we were just building a big nest egg. Prior to that, I did have a career working public relations and investor relations for a software startup company. A couple of them. Actually, I worked in healthcare a little bit too. But Phil is still in cybersecurity and has said, I was asking him the other night, how long have you been working in cybersecurity? And he said, just say a lifetime career. He didn't put the number on there, a long time, long time. And we joined Lifestyles then in 2017.
All right, and as I mentioned before, you've got 4 properties as a lead.
Yeah, we do.
Almost, 272 units, that doesn't sound like enough, but I guess they some small deals.
Yeah, there were small deals. So the first one that we bought that we're going to talk about tonight is 36 unit. Then we kind of went up the road. Everything I have is in the Piney Woods. So if you're in Texas, you know where that is, up 59 at Livingston. Then we went to Lovekin and we bought 2 there. We bought them as a portfolio. One was 40, one was 44 units. And then now we have 152 units in Nacogdoches, which is the home of Stephen F. Austin University. So that's student housing.
And then, so that's her role as a lead investor. And then there are also passive investors in 9 deals and almost 2,000 units on that side too. So they make money all ways. All right.
So we knew that real estate was a good place to be, but we didn't quite know how to get there. And that fear factor of doing your first deal was really paralyzing. And because Phil traveled so much with his job, I was at home, and it was just being able to pull that trigger was a very scary thing. So we dabbled in it a little bit. We found, I had a friend whose husband was a realtor, and he called me and said, hey, there's a house that's for sale. It needs a lot of work. Are you interested? And Phil and I just said, let's do it. Just close your eyes. Let's just do it. If we lose money, if this doesn't work out, whatever. While we were doing that, the contractor that we hired to flip that house for us was a Lifestyles vendor. And at the same time, a friend of Phil's had been talking in his ear the whole time about lifestyles and multifamily and pigs and all these weird terms that he kind of ignored. And when we flipped that house, we kind of got together and said, what are these guys talking about? And realized that we had both been getting information from different places about the same thing. And so that's what made us join Lifestyles, is we said, like, how can these two guys, have the same story and we need to figure it out. So we went to an expo. It was right up against the first expo, and we joined immediately.
For those of you that don't know, once a year we have a Lifestyles Expo. Typically it happens in either Dallas or Houston, and it is a 2 or 3 day event. I forget, we keep expanding the deal, but it includes a bus tour with 8 Greyhound buses that tour 4 properties over 2 days, and we go on site, we see everything that's been done, and get to touch and feel and smell and everything. And then there are countless vendors and presentations and all sorts of stuff going on. So I would encourage you, go out to the website, find out what the next one is. I think this year we're going to be in Dallas, right?
February.
In February? Okay, so go out, get signed up before the thing gets booked out, and be a part of it. On this slide, there are a couple of things that you will hear over and over again in Lifestyles, and that is that people tried it on their own before they found here. I think we heard it in the last presentation as well. And also the common theme of everybody calculates how much money do I need so that I don't run out of money before I die. And then we look for a better way, and we learn the mentality of, I don't need to have a fixed amount. I need to have a stream of income or multiple streams of income in order to get to the finish line. All right. So Pecan Park.
Yeah, this is Pecan Park. This apartment complex is not exactly in the Lifestyles model in that it's built in 2007. And when we bought this in 2018, I mean, that was a very new property. So this is a 36 units. It has, I feel like I'm forgetting, 24 2-bedrooms, 12 1-bedroom apartments. We bought this while Scott was on a ski trip in 2018. We paid $2,325,000, so it equated to about $64,000 a door. Out of pocket, we raised just under $808,000. We have 12 passive investors. And so that's one of the other things about being a lead, is that your very first deal, you're asking other people that you don't know to give you their money so you can buy an apartment complex. But the education that you get at Lifestyles gives those people the confidence that you're going to be able to do your job. And so that was just mind-blowing to us that people were willing to give us their money, but they did, and we've helped them achieve their goals by sending them money every quarter.
Yeah, this is something that's fun to watch. The first-timers go out raising money and getting people convinced that they know what they're doing with the support system that we've put in place around them to go out and do this first deal.
And you heard from these single-family investors, too, that it is the scariest thing you'll ever do. It's scarier than getting married, because that just doesn't really affect other people. But when you start buying an apartment complex, there's a lot of other people involved. Luckily, both worked out for me so far.
Really quick, though, because I want to delve a little bit deeper into this, if that's okay. So you have 12 different investors. Are they all from right here in Houston?
In that deal, they are.
They are? Okay.
Yes.
Just so people know watching, and you have other deals.
Yeah, my current deal, they're from all over the country.
And that's what I want to bring up, because there's people watching from Hawaii. There's people watching from, Sarasota, Florida. You live where you want to live, folks. Invest where it makes sense. Most of these investors will never even go to these apartments. They just put money in. It's like a mutual fund to them, so to speak, and they're going to follow that. So,
Well, I was going to say, I mentioned the bus tours on the Expo. So I usually am in charge of one of the buses and have to entertain people all day long. One of the people, or a couple, that were on my bus this last year were from Guam. Do you think they ever visited any of the apartments that they invested in?
right.
I don't think so.
And also, you had 12 investors, and people think, well, only millionaires can do it. Well, they didn't each have 800 grand. You understand that? So every deal is different. Typical deals, the lowest investor on a small deal might be 25 grand. Some people might put 100 grand, 50 grand. What was your lowest investor on this deal, Mary?
On that deal, our lowest was 50. And we had a couple at 75.
Okay.
My current deals, we have a couple at 25,000 with that we agreed to let them in at 25,000. The bigger the deal, the harder it is to have investors with that kind of cash.
Right.
So I think a lot of first-time leads have investors at 25 or 50.
Right. So this is regular folks. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to do this. You can be a truck driver and do this. It doesn't matter if you put in 25K or 100K. If you make a 50% return, you make a 50% return. Everybody follow me on that? So I wanted everybody to understand it doesn't matter where you live, you can do this. That's what we're trying to get across tonight, is so they can accomplish this.
And I think when we've done this, the lowest number I've heard, I think, was 5K.
Yeah, there are 5K, but typically I always teach 25, because what happens is you have a kid that's in college, he doesn't have a lot of money, he's putting 5 or 10K in. And what I love is these lead investors, no matter how big they get, we say always save a couple slots for the new guys. Remember when you were new, you weren't worth 10 million back then. Let the little guys with 25 or 50K. Who loves that they do that? Give her a hand for letting in some of the little guys. Don't slow it down.
And then we financed this property with Arbor Lending. It was a Fannie Mae loan. We bought right at the peak of the interest rates in 2018. So you can see how those are going up and down. This comes full circle, 5.18% interest.
I think it's fun because, we're talking a lot right now about interest rates that are rising, and we've gotten incredibly spoiled with interest rates that start with a 3 over the last couple of years. But just 4 years ago, we thought 5% was a pretty good rate, and we were doing deals at this, and we will do them again going forward. So if you think that the market is about to go into the dumps, that interest rates are going out of control, that deals aren't going to work, they've worked before, they're going to work again.
And that loan was a 7-year term, 30-year AM, and it had a step down. So that means when you sell your property, you pay a penalty if you haven't already outpaced that step down. So it was a 5.432211% penalty that you pay at closing.
That's a percent of the loan amount.
Percent of the loan amount, right. That's what the step down is. And our rehab budget was $90,000. Because this property was so new, we really didn't have a lot of rehab work to do. It was mostly flooring. We were going to change out the flooring in all 36 units as we turned them. Of course, new paint, hardware. We did some cabinet doors. We had some parking lot restriping that we needed to do, repair some wrought iron work. And maybe we put in away enough for ACs and some roof repairs if it ever happened.
So we categorize deals into 2 broad terms. And if you come this weekend, David will take you through the specifics on all this. But we classify them as value add, which is it's got problems, we need to invest money, we need to fix some things so that we can raise rents and make it better and add to the property. And then we have things that are called yield plays. Yield plays, there's not a lot to do. 2007 construction, only 90,000 in rehab. It was about riding it out, tweaking a few things, extracting a little bit of value, but it was a blended deal. And then a lot of deals are somewhere in between, and we call them hybrids. So this one newer property, more on the yield side.
Yield, yeah.
Not a whole lot of risk involved in this. It was just a question of what are we going to do to extract some more value out of it over, what was it, a 3-year hold on this one? And we'll get to
Just
all
over.
that. Okay, so here's where we started.
So our income is $346,264. Expenses about $120,000 a year. That's probably about average for a property this size, I would say, for a newer property this size. Net operating income $226. Since we've had this for 3 years, we've distributed $173,000 back to our passive investors, and of course their share of that 173 is proportionate to the amount that they put into the deal. And then we just sold that in May, May 9th, I think, $3.1 million on a 6.5 cap. So to distribute back, the money here that I say cash to distribute at $615, that's after we pay them back their initial investment. So of the $808,000 that we initially generated from our passives, they get that money back first, and then we distribute the balance of that. So the distributions, their money back, and then on top of that, we'll end up with 100% return.
So they got their original $808,000 back. Over the 3-year period, they got $174,000. I'm rounding up on that. Total, when you figure all that out, it's 97.7%. So basically a double on their money in 3 years for passive investors that probably never saw the property. And this,
See how excited they get with 100% return?
I know, it gets kind of ho-hum when it's only 100% return anymore. But we have to remind ourselves 33% a year isn't too bad, right? Get that in the stock market, good luck. What was the other thing I was going to point out? 6.5 cap, don't get too caught up in that. David's going to take you through all that this weekend and explain all that to you. And by the way, the purchasers of the property that are going to take it to the next level happen to be with us tonight. Thanks for coming.
Juan and Angelo Toyo, congratulations.
So a couple of years from now, we're going to have them up here. We're going to be doing the same presentation, same numbers.
But think of that. All you new people, they just made 100%. Why on earth would these people buy it off them? Because when they bought it off another person, that person probably was up here saying, I made 150% return. Who likes that? There's a little bit of meat on the bone for the next guy. Yeah.
For sure. All right. So we've got before and after pictures.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite. This is what I really love about the property is finding a way to make it pretty. This sign that you see on the after picture, that sign was already there.
What crops were they growing in that field next to you there with the tractor path through there?
If you follow that dirt road all the way back to the right-hand side at the end of that building, that's where the trash dumpster is located. And at some point, the trucks decided that it was easier to just go through the grass. And nobody ever thought that there was a better way to do that. And that drove me crazy. There was a giant mud pit.
So you put a sign in the way.
Well, you can see in the after picture farther down in the distance, there's a new driveway put farther down the road. There was actually already a cut in the curb where it was supposed to be, but it had grown over and nobody ever realized it. So we just took the driveway back to where it originally was. So the trucks come in off the freeway, or off the highway rather, they go right to the trucks, they back up, or out to the dumpster, they back up and then back out on the road. The drivers love it. They're so happy. But then we also put some plants around that sign and filled it in. We didn't plant any sod or anything. This is a year later. So it just grew in by itself. It just grew back in.
After it wasn't driven over a few times?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right.
These are the interiors. They had just the vinyl rollout flooring, and we changed that to the plank hardwood look. It had like a yellow paint inside, and we just changed it to gray. Some of them got lighting if they needed it, but we left the white appliances. I should also tell you that Livingston, Texas is a town of less than 6,000 people. So we had to also know what our comfort level was, what the need and the demand was from the renters in that community. There's only a couple of places, only really 2 apartment complexes. There's some income-based housing, but we didn't really consider that part of our market. And so we didn't spend a lot of money to update these units because the demand wasn't there from the renters.
So a couple of things that you'll hear us say is best product, best price, and clean and functional. Don't over-improve things. We're just asking you to own it and make money off of it, not live in it. So sometimes we get a little overzealous when you're in Houston, and I'm right down here at Gessner and Westheimer, and I got to have stainless steel, right? White's not good enough. But you got to size up your market. Yeah, granite. I mean, we're doing all sorts of upgrades to compete against each other and drive the market. But in Livingston, this is all it took to generate 100% return in 3 years.
Yeah.
So minor tweaks.
Yeah, our budget of $90,000, only 45 of that was for unit upgrades. This was the office. We did spend a little bit of money to take that carpet out of the office, clean up the walls a little bit. My daughter did the painting on the wall there for Pecan Park, a little custom artwork for us. Thank you, Madison. And then we just put a nice desk in there, a pretty lamp. There's a safe on the wall behind that lamp. And so I found a lamp that had the biggest drum shade I could find so that it hides that silly safe in the wall.
All right. And now we're going to get into the numbers.
Okay, so the rent increases in that market aren't significant. Again, you have to be comfortable knowing that this is a yield play. So our rents didn't go crazy like they are right now. But our operating expenses did suffer. I have to say that the problem with our operating expenses is you'll notice year 2 here was COVID. So we were plugging along in 2020 from January to July with the best numbers we could have imagined. We were really rolling. But COVID had hit in March, and I'd already told the passives, we're not going to distribute at the beginning of this year because we don't know how this is going to go down. So we're going to be very conservative, and we're going to protect the asset. But we followed the Lifestyles model, and we ran this property very conservatively, and we took care of the property so that we didn't have a lot of plumbing issues and electrical issues. We were good managers, good stewards of that property. But at the end of July, when the additional unemployment money ran out, people vacated. And we were down to about 75% occupancy for a few months. And as soon as we'd fill a couple of units, 3 other people would skip. And then we'd fill a couple more units, and 3 other people would skip. And then we wouldn't, the month of October that year, not one lease for the first time ever. And this is a property, we'll put it on Facebook at 2 in the afternoon, and by 10 the next morning, we've got 3 applications in. It's very easy to rent these apartments.
So let's emphasize this. The returns that you're seeing here, first year they did 4.5% cash on cash. Second year, 3.6. Not stellar, right? But think back 2 years ago with what was going on in the world, and the world was ending, literally. From Japan to Houston to Europe, everything was going wrong. They were managing the property, they were feeding the golden goose, and they had a long-term perspective on where they were going with this thing.
But let's take it one step further. You think back to that period when all these businesses were going out of business. Who'd be okay in the worst economy ever to make a 3.6% return? In the worst economy, not losing 20% like you did in your portfolio. Who likes that idea?
Yeah, I want you to
Give
go
them a
back
hand
and
for being a good steward of the money for the people.
I was going to say, I want you to go back and look if you've got a stock market portfolio of what it was doing during these times. And it wasn't positive, it was negative. Okay.
I have to also say, a lot of people ask that, people who are haven't owned or are passives, and they ask about that COVID year. So the first year of ownership, you pretty much don't sleep because you don't know what you're doing. And then the second year, you have COVID, so you pretty much don't sleep because you're scared of what you don't know. So year 3, I started sleeping again. That was exciting. that was really a blessing.
It's the little things in life.
It is. And I do want to mention, only because this involves Scott too, but during that COVID year, we also bought 2 more properties, deeply distressed, 50% occupied with tons of deferred maintenance. And we bought that during COVID as well. So it was also a buying opportunity. And that thing was a unicorn. When you talk about value plays versus yield plays, those were deep value plays.
Yeah, that was a fantastic
So see,
deal.
knowing the market and knowing what we can do, we make money when we buy, that didn't scare them. You understand? Because they had a team around them. But one of these things that's very important about all of this is even in the worst economies, we're still making money. And most people, when they're scared, we actually make the most money. And I understand you were scared, and now you can sleep better, but looking back, we all wish we had more money during COVID. Who agrees with that? Yeah. You know, because we would buy, the hardest thing to teach here for my Lifestyles members once you join and you start investing is you will run out of money before you run out of deals. And most people think it's the opposite. They think, I can't get into a deal. There's not enough opportunities out there. But once you start doing it, you run out of money. Watch this. How many people in the room are already invested apartments ran out of money? How many wish you had more money? See, they all do that. Because when you make 100% return, you're like, I want to sell my children to get in the next deal. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around, as I said, since 2006 when I found Lifestyles. And so I've been through a pretty big financial cycle in 2008, 9, 10, 11. And the only thing I can say looking back is I wish I had bought everything that was for sale at the time. And the very positive thing about what's going on right now is I see the cycle repeating itself. A lot of what we do is a model, and you just repeat the model over and over and over again. But big cycles like ones that come along every 10 years, you've got to be in this for a while, or you've got to have mentors that have been through it to tell you what they see coming and to react to it. So, and we're looking at deals right now.
Looking at a lot of deals right now, yeah, good ones. I think really what's important about this slide is year 3 includes the first half of this year, so technically it's 3.5 years because we bought in May. We were already under contract when the first quarter distributions were coming through, and we just decided we'll just pay it all out when we sell. So you'll see things like the debt payoff went crazy in year 3. It's because we sold. So we
Paid off the note.
We paid off the note there, right. So return of investor capital went crazy in year 3 because we sold the property. So those, you've got to look at year 3 there as the year that we sold.
Now, I would like to point out here too that in year 3, they're showing a property value of $3,259,000. How much did you pay for it? 3.1 million. So they got a
You're
pretty
welcome.
good deal. Yeah. And there's still some meat on the bone for them to take it to the next level.
Right.
Now something very important. Something very important. Those first 2 years, she said she lost a lot of sleep. All of her investors, how much sleep do you think they lost? Who was there every day worrying?
Ask Alan, he's over here. Did you sleep?
Oh, Alan, you're one of the investors in this deal? You lost 0 sleep. You just said, where's my check, right? That's the point.
He called me one day and said, can I buy you out? And I said, no.
Oh.
I said, why not? I said,
So I just want to repeat that. So Mary called him one day, because I don't know what happened. She goes, can I buy you out? And he goes, nope, I'll just give me a check. I love that idea.
I'm worried about losing my money.
Yeah, I understand. Good. Being conservative. Awesome.
That's me. I also want to point out that in year 3, though, the cash-on-cash distributions of $102,000, that does not include, remember, I did not pay a distribution this year because we were under contract. So that $102,000 is what we actually distributed to our passives in year 3. So year 1 was kind of our startup year, and it was we were doing a lot of rehab work, and so we didn't give out as much money. Year 2 was our COVID year. We still beat year 1. From a dollar perspective, and then year 3 went crazy. That's really where we should have been on that trajectory.
So she had paid out $102,000 on an $808,000 investment before she sold it and paid out $1,455,000. Yeah, not bad, huh?
Give me a hand. That's great, man.
So again, and we've said this number before, over a 3.5 year investment, she had over a 97% return. Through COVID, through everything that went wrong, everything went right. Yeah. All right. So how did you increase the NOI, net operating income, which determines how much the place is worth?
So of course you always look to increase your rents appropriately. And as taxes go up and insurance goes up and supply costs go up, you have to take the rents up accordingly.
Now I want to point out, she said here 12.5% rent increases. How do you have a 100% return on your money with only a 12.5% rent increase? Come this weekend, let him explain cap rates, and you'll figure out how to do the math and how this all works out.
The next thing we did, I told you that in 2020 we bought 2 other apartment, actually at the end of 19, we bought 2 other apartment complexes, and then we had volume, so we could buy in bulk and get better discounts from our vendors. So we leveraged the buying power of the other assets that we had. When I bought the property in Livingston, the previous owner had started charging for water, trash, and sewer, which are the RUBS.
Yeah, RUBS is an acronym for Ratio Utility Billing System, and what that means is typically an apartment complex has 1 water meter. So as the landlord, you get a bill for $1,000 or whatever it is, and then you have to allocate it out per apartment, $30, $40, whatever the allocation works out to.
So
And
when we
she
bought,
carried that through.
yeah, when we bought the property, when the previous owner had the property, it was all bills paid. But he started then charging back for those utilities. But you can't do that when people are under an existing lease. So we took over the property, and then as those leases expired, we could start charging them other fees for their utilities. Like increasing the trash fees and stuff. There was never an admin fee being charged there, so we started adding an admin fee. We went to online payments, so we weren't chasing down money orders, and it really frees up the property manager's time significantly. So that was a big adjustment. And then in addition to that, our property manager, not only she became more efficient, but we replaced her, and she was really much more efficient. And with the automated online payments, we went from 20 to 15 hours a week.
So just like other industries, we've automated as much as we can with online payments and things like that. She's closed the office down, so it's not even half-time now. It's only 15 hours a week. I've got places where we've got 124 units. We used to run it with 2 people in the office. Now we've added 46 units on a neighboring property to it, and I've got 1 person in the office because we've automated placing work orders for service calls and how we dispatch those. We've automated payments. All those things are online now. They can look at their own ledger and see their payments and how much they owe and all those sorts of things. So it got rid of a whole lot of interaction with admin and office people.
And when you're a first-time buyer, typically you can't afford to buy 140 doors at a time. You're buying a smaller property, so you have to do a lot of that leasing work yourself. But this property has the property manager lives on site. And so it's an hour and a half from my home, which makes it a lot easier. This was a really good purchase for me just because it had that person already on site, and then we could obviously automate and just make it much more efficient.
All right. So how has Lifestyles changed your life?
In so many ways, we are pinching ourselves that we have found this opportunity. But one of the things that Dell talked about a lot in the 2-day and in the Expo and just in sessions over the years is the abundance mentality. Because people that sit out there think about, well, is there a house for me? Is there an apartment complex that I can afford? Can I really do this? And the Lifestyles teaches you that there's room in this market for everybody. There's enough out there. There's so much inventory that's available. It's just understanding how to do it. And so we took that abundance mentality and kind of apply it in the rest of our lives. We give back to our employees. We help them in ways that we don't necessarily offer them benefits or 401k, but we give them other opportunities to be successful and feel important. Phil uses it in his career with his sales team. He's a sales leader in cybersecurity. And so, salespeople will fight over their quotas and they'll argue over accounts and who gets paid on what. And Phil has implemented that with his sales team as well, that we have an abundance mentality. Let's all work together and all be successful in this effort. And that's what really Lifestyles, most importantly, has given us.
So let me talk about how that kind of goes throughout Lifestyles. Before you folks came in today, there was a meeting that occupied pretty much these 3 sections of the room. And it was all of the lead investors having a meeting that we do once a month before this case study, and we share ideas and what we see going on in the marketplace, and we help each other. It's not unusual for us to buy an apartment complex across the street or down the block from a fellow member. How many times do you see where your competitor, your direct competitor, will tell you what they've done to improve their business, turn over their financials in order to help you do the same thing that they've done? It happens in here every month when these meetings are going on. And so that's how the abundance mentality has kind of proliferated throughout the Lifestyle system. Do you have anything to add on to that?
I would just say 100%. I mean, every one of those leads, if you call them up with any question, they'll tell you their vendor, they'll tell you their strategy, they'll tell you how to problem solve, but they also talk about financials, and this is what it's going to cost, and I would recommend it. It's insane the amount of information that we share with each other.
The detail between how much we're paying for a 5-gallon bucket of paint to a toilet to an AC unit is ridiculous at times, and how deep we get in with all this. So, all right.
All right, so we're currently looking for our 5th asset. Like Scott said, we're all evaluating properties all the time, and we hope to bring down another property this year in 2022. We are looking at markets outside of Texas, so if you're in a market that's got some opportunity there, we'd like to see what that's all about. Long-term goals, we would like to be more invested in passive income so that we can get Phil out of his job. Buying another asset for us and investing passively really reduces the risk and increases the opportunity, of course, for passive income. And then we'd like to provide opportunities for our kids to invest in real estate. They're starting to ask questions, and and use the word passive income. And when they're using that word passive income, they're really starting to appreciate it. That's because they have jobs now and they're all like paying taxes. But that's what it's all about.
So it's fun when I see some of my investors say, will you break whatever the minimum investment is, and they want to give their kids a $5,000 or $25,000 piece of a business that we're buying so that they can start to talk to them about the financials and they can get a check a quarter to see how it all comes together. It's even funner when one of my twins that are now 25, she's a mechanical engineer, graduated from the University of Maryland. She now has a pretty good W-2, and she invested $50,000 in the last deal that I did in August of last year. That's exciting when your kids start to do it. I mean, and you've talked about
And your kids finally believe in you.
Well, she's about to believe in me. Yeah. And I should say, this is the kid that I think it was her sophomore year of college. She came home, and I had offloaded everything to a third-party management company. I had retired for the second time. I sold a business. I built this portfolio up, hired a third-party company because I didn't want to start a management company and start hiring employees again. So I offloaded all that. On, I think it was a Wednesday. It was the third day in a row where, at the time she was 19 years old or something like that, and she probably came out of the back area of the house where her bedroom was at, 1 o'clock or whenever they wake up. And she saw me on the couch with probably, some business thing, Bloomberg or something going on the TV, and I had my laptop out and I was doing emails or whatever I was doing for the third day in a row. And she said, "You don't work very hard, do you?" And I didn't know how to react to that. I said, "Are you taking notes or are you criticizing me?" What it did, though, was it got me off the couch, and I started a management company. I fired the third party, and now I have a corporate management company that really the people do all the work now. I still show up there almost every day when there's not 6 inches of snow.
See, that's the problem with people like me and Scott. We
Yeah.
just don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
We have to do something.
By the way, it coincided. I'm pretty sure this was in 2017, and it coincided with when Dell told me, "Good news, I got a job for you at Lifestyles." And I said no 3 times before they finally convinced me to take the job that I'm doing here tonight.
It's funny, all of the mentors and stuff, this is our give back. We became millionaires.
Yeah.
I work 4 days a month teaching seminars. He's working part-time teaching other people. Now you think about it, him or Curtis Haynes or whatever, this guy has how many units do you have now?
How many units?
Like 3,000 or so, let's say?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't keep.
This guy has 3,000 units, millions and millions of dollars worth of assets, and yet he'll help somebody buy a little 8 unit and go out to that property and walk them through that deal. And you're like, well, why would he do that if this guy's worth millions? None of us would be up here if it wasn't for Dell showing us how to do it in the beginning. You understand that? This is our give back. There is nothing more exciting than teaching somebody else what you know. That's our legacy. You understand? That's the final step that we went through. And I love that the first guy coming up here, what did he say? I want to mentor teenagers.
Right.
It's that same thing, giving
The
back.
abundance
Maybe Mary will
mentality.
be up here giving it back. But she is giving back by sharing her story because it'll inspire some of the new people to be the next generation of lead investors like her.
And there are times when I ask myself, why do I keep doing this? And I don't have a good answer. I just keep doing it.
So I can give you a hard time every month.
Yeah, exactly. Once a
Well,
month.
if I can mentor my own kids, that's the goal here, right? Yeah. So mentor Scott Scott's been my mentor on all of my deals, so I thank God he went back to work too. Diana Munn is the agent. There she is. Yes, she's one of the best here.
Really quick, I just want to add a little bit because I just talked to Diane a few seconds ago. This deal went through 3 different people in Lifestyles. She was the realtor for every 3 of them. Way to go. Isn't that kind of cool, the legacy she has of helping 3 different people make great returns?
Oh, and she made me feel so guilty when we sold that for less than what the cap rate dictated. She was like, "Come on, Mary, give back. This is what you do. This is what we do in Lifestyle."
See, she guilts them.
She's good. She's good. Richard Copeland was our broker that we used. He's a Lifestyles vendor. Gene Trowbridge is the attorney to help us do all of our legal documents so that we could raise money legally. The lifestyle lead investor community, I mean, there are too many names to mention of the people that I call on a regular basis for questions and ideas, or sometimes just to cry with whatever it is. But the list is very long. And I didn't mention on here, so I do want to call out Randa, because even with my 4th property, I was in a situation with handicap parking, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to do here. So I call Randa. So even now, with 4 deals later, she's still my go-to for stuff like that. So
Amanda's super powerful. She's our secret weapon. Give her a hand.
right.
All right, so with that, let's open it up to question and answers. What didn't we anticipate that you want to ask us about?
One over here.
For any of your properties, do you go into contract agreements with internet and cable providers?
So about internet and cable providers.
So that depends on the property, of course. This property, we don't have any contracts for internet or cable. They get their own. With the second and third properties, we didn't actually have contracts, but we had like a bulk utility contract for electricity, and we would get referral fees back. So as they would come, right, so we would make money that way. And then on the current property that I own, we do have an interesting internet contract that we inherited. It's a student property, right? So high demand for internet. But the contract was 152 units in the apartment complex. We were paying $7,200 or $7,300 a month, and it provided video service, which means TV. Those kids don't watch TV. And so I called the contractor and I said, look, I think I'm overpaying for this service. I inherited this contract. It's up in another year, but I'd like to terminate it and renegotiate. We'll keep you as my vendor if you agree that we'll take video out of that. Not one resident noticed that it was gone, and we went to about $3,300 a month for that. But yeah.
So I'll also tell you that we have a vendor in the Houston market, and I think he worked for Comcast before. He now works as a broker and gets in the middle. He just renegotiated my contract, so I have a contract with AT&T and Comcast, and they compete with each other, and he increased my revenue and my profitability based on all of that. We also have myself and one other member now that I can think of, and there may be more out there, but we actually have cell towers on our property now, and we went out and contracted with somebody that was a specialist on that and helped us negotiate.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to increase this NOI. Well, I'm not going to get too deep in the woods. There's lots of ways to increase my. I'll teach that this weekend, though. Great question, though.
Biggest headwinds this year, what do you think they are?
Well, I think the lenders are jittery.
Yeah.
Lenders are nervous.
So I would say that the headwind this year, and right now it's an interesting question at this time because I've been saying this for about a month now, and that is we all realized that interest rates were changing. I mean, the Fed, big meeting every 6 weeks or whatever, have 75 points so far. We know we've got another 100 basis points coming, 50 of them in 15 days or something like that, another 50 basis points before the end of the summer. So interest rates are going up. Now, in light of all of that happening, the last people to admit that's happening, first is the seller, because they don't want to say that that's their headwind. The second is the broker who is telling the seller that they can sell it for a certain amount of money, and they don't want to admit that they can't sell it for that maybe it should be a little bit less than that. Now, in our local market, I'm not seeing a monstrous fall. You want to talk about 5, maybe 10%? Maybe. There are some other markets out in the country that probably have bigger hits, I think, than we're dealing with here. But I really, and this is kind of what we were saying before, I've seen this cycle before in 2008, 9, and 10, and I sold 4 properties last year just because loans were up. I got offers that were ridiculous. I didn't market any of them. None of them were listed for sale. Just people kept coming to me until I got a price I couldn't refuse. So I've got cash on the sidelines now, and I'm waiting to pounce. And I'm planning on spending that money between now and the end of next year. So.
We have a.
And people always ask me this, Dave, aren't you worried about the economy? I joined in 2009. I have bought properties every single year, at least 1, 2, maybe 5, sometimes 10 a year. So we make our own economy because we adjust to the economy each time. We're never paying full price. We're buying distressed assets. That's how we make our money.
And then to bring it down to this level, she's been tracking a portfolio that she wants to add to her portfolio, and we think now is the time to move on this deal. So we're working on that.
So you notice none of us have been slowing down. So while everybody else out there is scared in the world, when everybody's scared, do you realize that's the best opportunities? Because, okay, so we don't make 100% return, we make an 87% return. I think we'll all cry up here.
Yeah.
You understand that? So, one more.
Okay, what about washer and dryer units? Do y'all buy or lease them to tenants?
Well, there's several ways to do that. Washer and dryer, well, let you, you're a mentor, go ahead.
I mean, I will tell you that in 2009, I bought a property at Westheimer in Fountain View, and nobody in that lead meeting that was here today thought that you should own washers and dryers. You shouldn't be in the appliance business. We are in the apartment business. I said, I'm going to go the other direction. Now, out of 164 units, about 40 of those don't have connections. The other 120-ish, I own about 85 to 90 of those units, washers and dryers, and I get $50 a month for the set. So it's a pretty good income source. I buy them for less than $800 a set, install them, $50 a month, $600 a year, 75% return, times as long as they take to break. And we don't fix too many of them. We just say, you know what, we've owned it for, I bought that place in 2009, so I've owned it for 13 years now. They've been producing money for 10 years. Throw the thing out and bring in a new one. I got my money out of it.
And sometimes, like if you're new and don't know how to do this, these contracts are egregious. They're 10-year contracts. They have perpetuity. You know, they can be horrible. They only give you like 20%. We'll help you renegotiate that because we have the buying power of all these members to do that much better.
Oh, you're talking about the laundry room. Were you talking about the laundry room or were you talking about individual
about
units?
laundry contracts.
Okay, yeah, I was talking about individual units because I have connections in there.
I know what you meant.
But yeah, for laundry rooms, we also have those, and we negotiate those as he
But
said.
yeah, that could be an hour-long discussion.
But I want to point out, I'd like to go back full circle just a minute. You know, I feel like I can answer those questions, right? Right? But I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. So I don't have a background in accounting. I don't have a background in law. I don't have a background in real estate, but I learned how to run all aspects of my business. I do all my own accounting and all of my own business and marketing and planning and everything. I learned that here. So when you talk about full circle and who's on your team, it's hard to narrow down that list, but I feel really smart suddenly knowing the answers to the questions that those guys just answered.
So
See how powerful that is?
And you just
Give her
made
a
me,
hand.
you just made me think of something that's very true with me too. So for some reason, the A&M people get up here and they make a big deal out of the fact that they went to A&M. Hook 'em, baby. Okay. I went to UT to go to business school. I got a D in the first accounting class, and it put me out of business and into the speech communications class. Accounting and money didn't mean a thing until I bought my first business, and it was my money that was at stake.
Then it mattered.
And now my GL became her GL, and we walk them through the whole deal, and somehow we all understand accounting now, and I have found myself having some pretty high-level accounting conversations with my CPA doing my tax return. So it's...
And I use Scott's GL, and I just gave it to Juan and Angela to run their property. We're all using
cool.
the same numbers.
All right, cool.
What's a
We can help each
GL?
other.
There comes the what's the GL.
Your general ledger.
General ledger, yes.
And guys, I know a lot of the stuff you hear up here sounds like Greek if you're brand new.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm going to bring it down to this level. It's some of the members are more advanced here. They're in deals, so they ask advanced questions. But remember, what's in it for me? That's always what I said when I was new. Does this sound like something you could do? Think about not as a lead investor. If you want a career, you could do what she's doing, but maybe as a passive investor in your first one. Put money in and make 100% return in 3 years. That's what you should take away. Look at what you're doing now. What do you do in your IRA, your 401k, your 403b? Is it doubling its money like that in 2 or 3 years? Probably not. Maybe it's something you should learn how to do. That's my point.
And just to tie the whole accounting thing back, second banner from the end, Emory Jacob. He ran the country of Hungary for Arthur Andersen before it imploded underneath Enron. That's where I got my first GL, from that guy.
Yep. He was
So
here
I've
earlier in that
handed it
meeting.
down.
Earlier.
He was here earlier as well, yeah.
And one more question over there.
Oh, why did you decide to sell the property rather than refi?
The question is why to sell it to refi?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for a few reasons, I had done all that I could do with that property. It's time for me to grow bigger. So 36 stores is an economy of scale that's significant if you have 6 single-family homes. But if I have 152 apartments at one time, that's way better. And now I can take that money and buy 250 apartment complex, or 250 units in an apartment
So
complex.
I want to rephrase that question because you own like a 30-some unit, don't you? Isn't that him? Yes? So what is rule number 3 that Dell teaches? Do you know what it is? You can't get rich slow. You have to be willing to give up what you have for what you can become. So if we can make 100 grand, let's turn it to 200, turn to 400. Don't get so comfortable from the cash flow that you're willing to give up an 8% return when you can make 100% and go twice as big and do half the work. She learned. Give her a hand.
Yeah. And And I'll go back to the last presentation. They've got 18, 19 units as of today. Their goal was to go to 26, but what's better than that? We've got some members that once they get that model down, they've taken it to 75 and 100 houses.
Everyone.
Or you can sell those 26 units and we can go to 40 apartments, right? And then we can build from there. She's building from there. We went and did, from this one, we did 84, 88 units. We sold that. She now has 152 units, and that one's doing well. And now we're looking at how big is the portfolio we're
A
sizing?
couple we're looking at that are almost 300.
Yeah, so
So
it's all scalability.
from this little conversation, just so there are members already been members for years here. You're in 5 houses, 10 apartments. Even though you're members for a long time, you have to come back to the basics sometime. Come back to the basic seminar I teach because you forget what you learned. When you learn the first time you come through, you're like, maybe I can buy 1 house. You come a year later, well, maybe now I have 4 houses. What should I do next? You need to reevaluate your situation and you forget some of the basic principles we teach. I encourage everyone here, come back to the seminar because the people with 18 houses need to grow. They need to let go of what they have, which is not easy. You're used to making your 90 grand a year. You want to make 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, $500,000 a year, you have to give up what you have for what you can become. You with me on that? Because when you own 18 houses, you just create a job for yourself. You got comfortable. My job, Scott's job as mentors is to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Who likes we do that? We don't sugarcoat and give hugs here, unless you're from California. Then we do. But the rest of you, we're going to tell you what you need to hear. Who likes we do it that way?
David, the other piece about that is that it wasn't just about me, but about my investors as well. I can now double their money so they can double
Shorter
down.
period of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
See?
You're in, Alan. You're
Become
in.
loyal.
when you start to roll forward with the next deal, the biggest thing is when your past investors start to roll forward with you, and our job becomes easier and easier to multiply. One of the things that David didn't say that he usually introduces me with, and he just said that, we try and teach you how to make 100,000, 200,000, $500,000. What he really usually likes to teach people is how to lose $1.6 million on your tax return. That's
He
what I
usually
lost
says
last
that, and
year.
the new people are confused.
Yeah.
Because the other year he lost 1.6 million.
That was last year.
Give him a hand.
Well, 2020. I haven't filed last year's yet.
And what that means, you'll learn this through depreciation and things I'm teaching, cost segregation, a lot of big words. I'll teach you how when we lose money, we're actually making money. That's what you do. And I'll give you a real world example about it. It might hurt his feelings. His former president, President Trump, who remembers him? Remember when he was debating, who was that ugly lady? Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton and Trump were debating, and remember she goes, you lost $1.9 billion. Who remembers that? Now, you don't have to like Orange Man's politics. I don't care. I'm not talking about that. He had a really snarky answer. Who remembers what he said? Because I'm smart. Financially, not mentally. Financially. Who agrees he's smart? Who would like to lose money and never pay taxes? Yeah, you all would. So that's what he's trying to come across as.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. What else? We got anything online?
We're good?
Good online? Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inspiring people and sharing, Mary, and thank you, Scott.